Hello everyone. I hope you all are doing well. I am Evelin Rani, working as Assistant Professor, Department of Psychology, SFR College, Sivakasi. In today's session, we are going to talk about psychological testing. Okay, the objective of this today's session is to understand the concept, origin and the types of psychological tests which is used in the counseling process, and to identify the characteristics that make the psychological test reliable and valid and effective. Reliability and validity stands for standardization, and to examine the limits and the ethical considerations which is associated with psychological testing. In today's session, we are going to discuss about the history of psychological testing, how the psychological test evolved throughout the lifespan, and what are all the psychological tests are there to measure the human behavior and the phenomenon which is inside the human. And we are also going to see about the nature and the limitations of psychological testing. Introduction. First, we have to know about what is psychological testing. Psychological testing is nothing but it is a standardized measures or the test which is used to measure the individual abilities, functions and behaviors. These tests helps in assessing the various attributes of the individual such as intelligence, personality, aptitude, emotions and cognitive abilities. These psychological tests are used in various areas like clinical, educational and organizational setting in order to provide the diagnosis, selection and guidance for the research, and it helps us to understand the human behavior very objectively and systematically. In process, there are three processes in counseling. First thing is initial disclosure, second one is in-depth exploration, and third thing is commitment to action. In in-depth exploration phase, the psychological testing takes place, because in this phase only we are getting to understand about the root cause of the individual problems. Then by using the psychological test, we analyze the individual problem and get to know about the solution and what are all the steps is taken in order to solve that particular problem. Those things will become under the middle part of the counseling. Coming to the history of psychology, in BCE 2200, there was a test called proficiency test which was used by the emperors who are ruling the people to evaluate the public officials whether they fit for the particular role or not. And in 1800, the Babylonians developed the concept called astrology. They believed that by using astrology we can able to communicate with God and we can able to predict a future of the individual by using astrology. But Greeks redefined this concept and they redefined us by using astrology we can able to describe the individual personality and we can able to predict the individual's behavior. And there came a concept called physiognomy which was given by the Pythagoras, and he spoke about by using the facial features, by using the physical appearance, by using the overall appearance of the individual, we can able to identify their personality and we can able to identify what the individual is actually. And Hippocrates introduced the concept of numerology into the field of medicine to treat the physical and the mental illness. Numerology is nothing but in numerology the belief is like numbers are having the mystical and divine connections to understand the person's characters and abilities. And initially people believed that individual's intellectual functioning is happening because of the heart, not the brain. And there came a concept which was given by Claudius. He spoke about heart is not the seat of intelligence or intellect, brain is actually doing the major part. And at that time science were overshadowed by faith and the superstitions, and there comes a time where the spiritual and the metaphysical energy were transformed into the empirical and the scientific one. And in the trials of wits in 1698 was given by John. He spoke about the disciplines of assessment. That was the first book which spoke about the assessment. And phrenology is a concept where we can understand the individual behavior and understand the individual personality through the shapes and the contour of the brain, through the brain structure to the skull structure of the individual. And this study focused on studying the human ability and the qualities. And in structuralism, Woon spoke about the introspection. Introspection is nothing but self-reflection or the self-understanding, what is happening inside the individual will be stated by the individual itself, and it is like a breaking down of mental process or the mental process which is going on inside the individual, like it may be problem solving, decision making or anything. So breaking down those process and understanding the basic element. This was spoken by the Wundt. And Sigmund Freud spoke about the interpretations of dreams, and he states about our unconscious desires, our unconscious motives, our unfulfilled dreams, unfulfilled wishes are appearing in the dreams. So by analyzing the dreams of the individual, we can get to know about what are all the unconscious drives is behind the individual's motivations. And Binet and Simon developed a intelligence test which consists of 30 items, and 1905 they used this scale to measure the intelligence of the school students. In 1900 the Vocational Bureau was started. The Vocational Bureau was aimed to giving the career guidance to the young adults, and it also focusing on helping the individual intellectual and the emotional functioning. And the first personality test was given by Robert Wordsworth. The tool was called as Woodworth personal sheet, and there are various measures are there to assess the personality. The one is Rorschach inkblot test, which is a projective test, and in order to assess the aptitude of the individual, there is a test called Scholastic aptitude test. In this test we can assess the reading and the writing skills and mathematical abilities of the individual. This test is basically used in the college admission process. And Carl Spearman spoke about the intelligence, and intelligence consists of, there are two factors, one is general intelligence and other one is specific intelligence. In general intelligence is also called as G factor, and specific intelligence is called as S factor. All the cognitive and the innate abilities that the individual possesses is considered as the general intelligence. For example, we are able to read, we have the ability to write, we have the ability to solve the basic mathematical aptitudes. So those are called as general factors, whereas specific factor is if the individual is able to solve the complex mathematical problems, or if the individual is excel in the artistic abilities, that those will be comes under the specific factors, that is X factors. So these are all the factors were studied by the Spearman, and he proposed there are two kinds of intelligence in the individual. One is general G factor, second one is specific S factor. And there are various tools developed in order to assess the personality and intelligence. To assess the personality of the individual, there are various tests like MBTI, MMPI, Wechsler intelligence scale for intelligence, and Big 5 for personality. There are various tools were developed later. And there is a test called self-directed search, which is SDS, which was developed by John Holland. The purpose of this test is to assess the individual to identify their career needs, what the individual is willing to pursue in his future, and it identifies the career needs of the individual that is compatible with their personality. And this is the overall conclusion that we spoke in this history. Then we move on to the types of psychological test. There are various types of psychological tests, as we mentioned. First thing is personality and intelligence. These are all the two things which will be focused more in the psychology, and achievement test, aptitude, attitude test, projective test, and neuropsychological test. Okay, before going into personality tests, we should know about what is personality is. Personality is nothing but it is a set of unique and relatively stable pattern of thoughts, emotions and behaviors which defines the individual and the distinctive way of experiencing and interacting with the world. And in order to assess the personality, there will be measure of two kind of inventories. First thing is self-reporting inventories, and next thing is projective test. In self-reporting inventory, the individual will read the question and rate how well the question is apt to them, how well the statement is applied to them. And in projective type of test, the test taker will be given with the vague scenario, vague picture or the situation, asking them to give the interpretation of those items. Like if we are showing some cards to the individual, we have to collect the data from the individual, what you are feeling, what you are thinking about this picture, and the researcher will identify and interpret those things which was stated by the individual. And Rorschach ink blot test is a projective test which is widely used, and it consists of 10 ambiguous ink blots, and the therapist interpret the person's answer, and the projective test is frequently portrayed as the way of revealing a person's unconscious thoughts, motives and the desires. As like psychotherapy, by using the projective test we can able to gain or gather a great deal of informations. And when we coming to the self-reporting inventories, it is very easy to administer as compared to the projective test. And okay, there are various types of personality tests. The first thing is Minnesota multiphasic personality inventory, and second thing is Myers-Briggs type indicator, and Hexaco personality inventory, and the five factor model. None other than that, there are various tools are there to measure the personality, but these are all the tools which is used widely. And first thing is Minnesota multiphasic personality inventory. This Minnesota multiphasic personality inventory is not only giving the individual personality, but it also able to help to assess the personality disorders in the individual. It also diagnose the mental health condition and also helps in evaluating the treatment program. Then comes the Myers-Briggs type indicator, which is widely known as MBTI, and this MBTI is a self-reporting measure, as we already mentioned, and it consists of 16 types of personality types. This MBTI is based on the concept of Carl Jung, and it is a most popular tool which is used widely, and it consists of 4 scales, like opposite poles are lies in the one scale. It consists of 4 scales. First thing is extroversion, introversion, sensing, intuiting, thinking, feeling, judging and perceiving. Extroversion stands for E, and introversion stands for I, sensing S, intuition N, thinking T, feeling F, judging J, perceiving T. Based on these responses given by the individual, they are identified as 4-letter acronym. For example, INFP, INFJ, those kind of things mention the individual. These are all the types, that is 16 types mentioned by Myers-Briggs. INFB stands for the mediator. The mediator means they have very high and idealistic values, and they strive to make the world a better place. They will not be more selfish. They want to make a world a better place. And for example, we are taking INFJ, they are called as advocate. They are more creative, they are more analytical, and this is one of the most rarest type. Okay, and next we will go to the Hexaco personality inventory, and it consists of 6 facets, like it measures the 6 areas of personality. First thing is honesty, humility. H stands for honesty. The individual who scored high in this area will be like, they are seldom break the rules, they not deceive the others for personal benefits, they will be more likely to be honest. And the individual who scored low in this area will have higher sense of self-importance, and they bend the rules for their personal gain. They did not follow the rules as exactly mentioned. And E stands for emotionality. The people who scored high in this area of emotionality will be more anxious, and they always need emotional support from the external source. They will not be self-sufficient to carry out or to manage their own emotions. They always need someone to support them emotionally. And the individual who scored low in this area aren't fearful of anything, like aren't fearful of any harm, any physical or any emotional harm, and they feel always detached from the people, like they are always moving towards the people. And the X stands for the extroversion. This term is very much familiar as compared to others. This extroversion stands for the people who scored high in this extroversion will be more confident, and they are considered as a more energetic person, and they are moving towards the external world, and they feel motivated to interact with the people around them. And the people who scored more in this extroversion area will be very much uncomfortable in talking with people, will be very much uncomfortable while they are the center of attention, and they are more hesitate to mingle with the society, and they are termed as introverts. Okay. Next thing is agreeableness. The people who scored more in this agreeableness will be inclined to compromise and manage their tempers and forgive the people easily. whereas the people who hold low in this area will tend to hold more grudges. They tend to hurt people who are doing something against them, and they always angered and easily they become angered when they are mistreated. And the people who scored high in this conscientiousness, which is they make the decision very carefully, and they strive towards perfection and accuracy, and they are more disciplined and they are more goal oriented. And the people who scored low in this area will make decision impulsively. They are not like they are not like those who scored high in this area. And openness to experiences, the people who scored high in this area will be more imaginative, and they always think out of the box. They break the unconventional, they do the unconventional way of thinking, and they break the conventional way. And the people who scored low in this area will be less creative, and they are not that much interested in doing artwork. They don't experience any intellectual curiosities. And then we will move to the big five. This is also called as NEOPI, and it stands for ocean. O stands for openness, C for conscientiousness, E for extroversion, A for agreeableness, and N for neuroticism. As we already saw in this hexaco, we spoke about openness, conscientiousness, extroversion and agreeableness. Neuroticism is the one thing which differ from the hexaco. In neuroticism people, the people with high level of neuroticism will be having very much mood swings, and they have more anxiety, they will be more irritable, and anxiety plays the major part in this neuroticism. And the people with high level of neuroticism will think a lot, they find difficult to relax, and they have the maximum level of stress which they can't handle, and they are not able to cope up with the stress that they are facing. And the people who scored low in this area will be exactly opposite to those who scored high, and the people will score low in this area will be having emotional stability, and they are easygoing. This is all about personality tests. We will see all the other tests in the next classes. I hope this video will be useful for you. Thank you.